It steals our attention, our time, our money, attitude, headspace. But what if God had more in mind for us? Let's talk about the thief of everything.
We're going to spend the next 3 weeks talking about something that has the potential to change the way that we see ourselves and others. In this series, we're talking about another thing we can get overly involved in, and it's called comparison. We all do it, it's natural, and it's normal. It's something that actually steals from us. It steals happiness, it steals joy, it steals so much. Here's the tricky thing about comparison. It has a way of taking over every part of our lives. Here's what I mean. It takes over our thoughts, our words, our actions, our relationships. This usually happens in a slow, subtle way, and we almost never recognize it. When we compare ourselves to others, we tend to believe that what they have is better than what we have. We get caught up in comparing ourselves with someone who has something we feel like we don't. It's an automatic loss for us. Then comparison starts stealing our peace, our joy. Without us even realizing it, our peace and joy have been taken by comparison, the thief of everything. Even when we compare ourselves to someone who doesn't have what we have, it steals from us. Our gratitude for what we have is replaced by fear. The thing that should give us confidence actually makes us feel insecure. We're not the first people to deal with this, and what we talked about today can be a game changer as we learn to recognize and deal with this subtle, sneaky thief. Thankfully, the humans who lived thousands of years ago, just after Jesus was alive on this earth, wrote down a thing or two about their struggles, their comparisons. The passage that we're going to look at was written by a guy named Paul, who was the greatest missionary in history of Christianity. In the letter we're looking at today, Paul addresses what it looks like to get involved in comparison. Oh, don't worry. We wouldn't dare say that we are as wonderful as these other men who tell you how important they are. But they are only comparing themselves to each other, using themselves as the standard of measurement. How ignorant. Paul is basically saying, we're all just basically creating our own standard of comparison. We're looking at each other and deciding what we think our lives need to look like. At the root of comparison, there are things like emotion, perception, and what other people say. That's foolish. It's not wise. It's not helpful. A few verses later, Paul tells us to turn our attention elsewhere. It says, when people commend themselves, it doesn't count for much. The important thing is the Lord to commend them. Paul is saying we spend time focusing on what other people and how we measure up to them, and it doesn't matter. Instead, God's encouraging us to turn our focus towards God. God sees us as beloved children no matter what. It has nothing to do with the people around us. God doesn't compare you to others. God designed us to be just the way we are. Instead of getting caught up in comparison, we can choose to remember that in God's eyes, we're always enough. The book of Proverbs gives us a good starting point for how to protect ourselves from this thief. Guard your hearts above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Comparison starts in our hearts. So if we want to avoid letting ourselves get caught up in the negative parts of comparison, then we have to stop it in the same place. So here are some ways that you can guard your heart. First, you need to pay attention to your feelings. Notice the way that your mood or outlook changes when you start to compare yourself to someone else. Do you feel disappointed, frustrated, angry, or anxious? Those feelings may be clues that you're caught up in comparison. Find out what's fueling it is second. What are you looking at, thinking about, or doing when you start feeling those things? What's fueling your negative feelings of comparison? If it's something that's in your control, take a step away from it. Close that app, turn off the TV, break from that friend group for a day or so. If it's something that you can't control, talk to someone who can help you. Someone you trust that's an adult that's further along in their faith. They can help you identify steps that you can take to guard your heart and break free from what's fueling comparison in your life. For example, think about your phone. Even though we pay attention to it all day, we hardly ever think about it, right? It's just a natural, normal extension to our lives. The only time that we do notice is when the battery's low. That's when it's our cue in our brain for something different. We have to find a cord and recharge it. Comparing ourselves to others is like having a low battery. It's a sign that we're not guarding our hearts. It's a sign that we need to do something different. We need to turn our attention elsewhere. We need to change what we're exposing ourselves to, or put some things on do not disturb. In the same way that a low battery sign is to charge, what if comparing became your signal to focus on the God who loves you so much? Every single one of us struggles with comparison in a different area of our lives. One of the reasons we have small groups is to give you a place to talk about these things and become more aware of them. So I hope that you will open up about how you may be struggling to break free from that thief, comparison. As you do, I want you to think about this question. What's one area of your life where you tend to compare yourself to others?
It steals our attention, our time, our money, attitude, headspace. But what if God had more in mind for us? Let's talk about the thief of everything.